Hello and welcome to The Essential Reads. My name is Isaac, and my goal is to bring to you a bunch of classic audiobooks in an easy and accessible way. We are continuing with Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, and this is Part 6, Chapter 5. Let's begin. Raskolnikov went after him.
"What is the meaning of this?"
Svidrigailov exclaimed, turning round.
"Why, I thought I told you."
The meaning of this is that I'm going to stay close on your heels.
What?
They both came to a halt, and for a moment they exchanged looks as though they were sizing each other up.
From all your semi-drunken stories,
Raskolnikov snapped abruptly, I've concluded quite definitely that not only have you not given up your thoroughly vile intentions concerning my sister, but are actually brooding on them even more than ever. It has come to my ears that my sister received some kind of letter this morning. All the time we were talking, you could hardly keep still. All right, so you've managed to produce a wife from somewhere on the way, but that doesn't mean anything. I want to make sure for myself. It was doubtful whether Raskolnikov could have said with any clarity what he wanted now, or what it was he wanted to make sure of himself.
So it's like that, is it? Do you want me to call the police?
Go ahead. For a moment they stood facing each other. At last, the expression on Svidrigailov's face underwent a change. Having satisfied himself that Raskolnikov had not been intimidated by his threat, he suddenly assumed the most cheerful and friendly air.
I say, you are a strange fellow. I purposely didn't mention that business of yours, even though I'm naturally alive with curiosity. It's a fantastic business. I was going to put it off until another time, but you'd whet the appetite of a corpse. All right, come on then. Only let me warn you in advance that I'm only going back to my place for a second in order to pick up some money. Then I shall lock up, take a cab, and spend the whole evening on the islands. So what's the point of you coming with me?
I want to look in at the apartment. Not to see you, but to have a word with Sofia Semyonovna. And tender my excuses for not having attended the funeral.
As you like, but Sofia Semyonovna isn't there. She's taken the children to the home of a certain lady, an old aristocratic woman who's a longtime friend of mine and runs some orphanages. I charmed her by taking her the money for all 3 of Katerina Ivanovna's fledglings, and I donated some more money of my own. I ended up by telling the story of Sofia Semyonovna, with all the stops pulled out, not concealing a thing. It had an incredible effect. That's why Sofia Semyonovna has an appointment today at the hotel, where my lady is spending some time away from her dacha.
Never mind, I'll call in all the same.
As you wish, only I shan't be your crony. Anyway, what business is it of mine? All right, we're nearly there. You know, I'm convinced that the reason you view me with suspicion is because I had the tact until now not to trouble you with awkward questions. Know what I mean? You thought it was a bit strange. I bet that's what it is, isn't it? Well, I suppose that's what one gets for being tactful.
And for eavesdropping at doors.
So that's what you're getting at.
Svidrigailov laughed.
Yes, I'd have been surprised if, after all that's taken place, you'd let that pass without comment. I understood at least a part of the tricks you'd got up to. There. That time. And were describing to Sofia Semyonovna. But I mean, what was it really all about? Perhaps I'm just behind the times and incapable of understanding any of it. For heaven's sake, explain it to me, old chap. Enlighten me with the latest ideas.
You couldn't possibly have heard anything, you're just lying.
Oh, but I don't mean that. I don't mean that. No, actually, I did hear 1 or 2 things. No, I'm referring to the way you keep sighing and moaning all the time. Every few moments, that Schiller in you keeps getting into a tizzy. And now it's, don't eavesdrop at doors. If that's the way you see it, why don't you just go and tell the authorities? Do you know what happened to me? there turned out to be a small flaw in one of my theories. If, on the other hand, you're convinced that it's wrong to eavesdrop at doors, but perfectly alright to crack the skulls of old women, then off you go to America at the double. Run for it, young man. You may still have time. I speak in all sincerity. You don't have the money. I'll give you enough for the journey.
I've absolutely no plans of that kind, Raskolnikov said, cutting him off with revulsion.
I understand. By the way, please don't put yourself to any trouble. If you like, you needn't say much. I understand the kind of problems that are currently on your mind. They're moral ones, aren't they? Problems to do with man as a citizen. Oh, put them to one side. Why should you bother with them now? Because you're still a man and a citizen? Well, if that's so, then you shouldn't have poked your nose into all that in the first place. It's no good if you don't know your own job. Well, you just have to shoot yourself. But perhaps you don't feel inclined to.
I think you're trying to irritate me on purpose, so I'll stop following you around.
You are a funny fellow. Well, we're here now. Let me welcome you to the staircase. Look, there you see the entrance to Sofia Semyonova's room. Look, there is no one there. You don't believe me? Ask at Kapanaumov's. She hands her the key at his place. Look, here she is, the lady herself. Madame de Kapanaumov. Eh? What? She's a bit deaf. She's gone out? Where to? Well, there you are. Did you hear? She's not in and may not be back until late tonight. Well, now let's go along to my rooms. I mean, you did want to come in, didn't you? Well, here we are. Madame Reslich's not home. That woman's forever on the go. But she has a good soul, I do assure you. She might have suited for you if you had a bit more sense. All right, watch. I'm going to take this 5% bond out of the writing desk. What a lot of them I still have left. And it will go to the money changers today. All right, seen what you want? I can't spare any more time. The writing desk's locked up, the rooms are locked up, and here we are on the staircase again. I say, if you like, we can take that cab out there. I mean, I'm bound for the islands. What'd you say to a lift? Look, I'll be taking this cab all the way to Yeligin. What, you don't want to? Had enough? Come on, let's drive together. It's all right. I think it may be coming on to rain. But never mind, we'll lower the hood.
Svidrigailov was already inside the cab. Raskolnikov concluded that his suspicions, for the moment at least, were baseless. Without a word of reply, he turned and walked off back in the direction of the Haymarket. If he had turned round even once on his way, he would have seen Svidrigailov, having travelled no more than 100 yards, pay the driver and dismount onto the pavement again. But by now he could see nothing, and had turned to the corner. A deep revulsion had drawn him away from Svidrigailov. And think that I could for one moment have expected anything from that coarse evildoer, that lustful villain and lecher. He found himself exclaiming in spite of himself. It must be admitted that Raskolnikov uttered this judgment rather too hastily, and without proper consideration. There was something about Svidrigailov's whole aura that lent him a certain originality, even mystery. As for his sister's place in all this, Raskolnikov was still, however, firmly convinced that Svidrigailov was not going to leave her alone. But now it was becoming too unendurably painful to think and brood about all that. In accordance with his habit, being left on his own after a couple dozen paces, he fell into deep reflection. Going up onto the bridge, he stopped over by the railings and began to look at the water. Yet all the while Avdotya Romanovna was standing above him. He had run into her at the entrance to the bridge, but had walked past, not recognizing her. Dunya had never encountered him in the street like this before, and had been shocked and alarmed. She had stopped and wondered whether to call out to him or not. Suddenly, she saw Svidrigailov coming hurriedly along from the Haymarket side. He seemed, however, to be making his approach in a mysterious, cautious manner. He did not come up onto the bridge, but stopped at one side, on the pavement, doing his utmost to make sure that Raskolnikov did not see him. He had spotted Dunya long ago, and had begun to make signs to her. She took the signs to mean that he wanted her not to call to her brother, but to leave him in peace, and that he was beckoning to her. Dunya obeyed. She quietly slipped past her brother and went over to Svidrigailov.
"Let's get away from here quickly,"
Svidrigailov whispered to her.
"I don't want Rodion Romanich to know about our meeting. I think I should tell you that I've been sitting with him in an inn not far from here, where he tracked me down of his own accord, and I only managed to get away from him with difficulty. He somehow found out about the letter I sent you, and he suspects something. I mean, you wouldn't have told him, would you? But if you didn't, then who did?"
"There, we've turned the corner," Dunya said, interrupting him. "My brother won't see us now. I want to make it clear that I won't go any further with you. Tell me it all here. It can all just as well be said out in the street."
"Look, in the first place, this isn't the sort of thing that can possibly be talked about in the street. In the second place, you must also hear what Sofia Semyonova has to say. In the third place, I want to show you certain documents." "Very well, then. If you won't agree to come up to my rooms, I shall refuse to give you any explanation and shall go away at once. At the same time, I ask you not to forget that your beloved brother's most intriguing secret lies entirely in my hands."
Dunya paused in indecision and fixed Svidrigailov with a piercing gaze.
"What are you afraid of?"
Svidrigailov said calmly.
"We're not in the country here. Even in the country, you did me more harm than I did to you. But here..."
"Does Sofia Semyonova know we're coming?"
"No, I haven't said a word about it to her, and I'm not even sure whether she's there just now. No, she probably is. She buried her stepmother today. Not the sort of day to go out visiting. I don't want to talk about this anymore before the time is right, and I'm even slightly sorry I told you. In this case, the slightest indiscretion will be equivalent to informing the police. I live right here in this building. Here we come to it now. There is our yard keeper. The yard keeper knows me very well. Look, he's bowing. He's seen I'm walking with a lady. And of course, he'll have taken note of your features. That will stand you in good stead if you're very afraid of me and view me with suspicion. Please forgive me for putting it so crudely. I rent rooms from some tenants. Sofia Semyonova lives through the wall from me. Her place is also rented from some tenants. The whole floor is in the hands of tenants. Why are you so frightened like a child? Am I really so very terrible?"
Svidrigailov's face contorted itself into a condescending smile, but now he was in no smiling mood. His heart was thumping, and the breath caught in his chest. He was making a conscious effort to speak louder in order to hide his growing excitement. But Dunya had not noticed this peculiar excitement. She was still too irritated by his remark that she was as frightened as a child, and that he was an object of terror to her. "Though I'm quite aware that you're a man without honor, I'm not afraid of you in the slightest. Please lead the way," she said with a show of calm, though her face was very pale. Svidrigailov stopped outside Sonia's room.
"Let me just find out if she's in or not. No, she isn't. We're out of luck. But I know she's likely to get back very soon. If she's gone out, it can only have been to see a certain lady about her orphaned siblings. Their mother has died. I also took a hand in the matter and made certain arrangements. If Sofia Semyonova hasn't come back within 10 minutes, I shall send her to see you. Today, if you like. Well, and here are my lodgings. These are my 2 rooms. Through that door lies the apartment of my landlady, Mrs. Reslich. Now, if you'll just glance over here, I'll show you my principal documents. This door here leads from my bedroom into 2 completely empty rooms, which are up for rent. Here they are. I'd give them rather a close look if I were you.
Svidrigailov occupied 2 rather spacious furnished rooms. Dunya gazed about her mistrustfully, but could observe nothing out of place either in the contents or the arrangement of the rooms. Even though another observer might have noticed, for example, that Svidrigailov's apartments happened to lie more or less in between 2 almost uninhabited ones. The entrance to his quarters did not lead straight in from the outside passage, but through 2 of the landlady's rooms, which were almost empty. Unlocking his bedroom door, which had a proper lock and key, Svidrigailov showed Dunya another empty apartment, one that was up for rent. Dunya paused on the threshold, not understanding why she was being asked to look. But Svidrigailov was quick to explain.
Look over here towards this second large room. Observe this door. It's locked with a key. Beside the door stands a chair. There is only 1 chair in the 2 rooms. I brought it through from my quarters so as to be able to listen in more comfortably. Right behind that door is Sofia Semyonova's table. That's where she sat, talking to Rodion Romanich. And I heard it all in here, sitting on that chair, for 2 evenings in a row, each occasion lasting a couple of hours. So I think you won't be surprised if I tell you I learned a few things.
You mean you were eavesdropping?
That's correct. Now let's go back to my rooms. There's nowhere to sit down here.
He led Avdotya Romanovna back into the first of his chambers, which served him as a reception room, and invited her to sit down on a chair. He himself sat down at the other end of the table, a good sagine away from her, at any rate, though his eyes must have already been glittering with the flame that had so alarmed Dunya on earlier occasions, for she shuddered and gazed around her mistrustfully again. Her gesture was an involuntary one. She clearly did not want to show her suspicion. But the secluded location of Svidrigailov's quarters had finally made its impression on her. She felt like asking whether his landlady was in, but she refrained from doing so, out of pride. There was, moreover, another suffering in her heart that was incomparably greater than any fear for her own safety. She was in the grip of an unendurable torment.
Here is your letter,
she began, putting it on the table.
Is it really permissible to write the sort of things that are in it? You allude to some crime that my brother is supposed to have committed. Your allusion is all too plain. You dare not try to talk your way out of it. I may as well tell you that I had already heard about this stupid tale before you wrote to me, and don't believe a single word of it. It is an infamous and absurd suspicion. I know the story and how and for what reason it was dreamed up. You cannot possibly have any evidence. You have promised to supply that evidence. Go ahead then, speak. But let me tell you in advance that I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Dunya said this in a rapid patter, hurriedly, and for a moment a flush broke out on her face.
If you hadn't believed me, I don't really think you'd have risked coming to see me alone, would you? Why, you'd have come... Why have you come here? Out of sheer curiosity?
Stop tormenting me. Speak. Speak.
One certainly can't deny that you're a girl with some pluck. To be quite honest, I thought you'd prevail upon Mr. Razumikhin to accompany you here. But there was no sign of him, either with you or anywhere around you. I had a good look. That's courageous. It means you wanted to go easy on Rodion Romanich. And in fact, everything about you is divine. As regards to your brother, what can I say? You saw him yourself just now. How did he strike you?
You're surely not basing your case on that alone, are you?
No, not simply on that, but what he himself said. You see, he came here 2 evenings in a row to see Sofia Semyonova. I showed you where they sat. He made a complete confession to her. He's a murderer. It was he who murdered the old pawnbroker woman, the civil servant's widow, with whom he himself had pawned certain items. He also murdered her sister, a market woman by the name of Lizaveta, who happened to walk in as the widow was being murdered. He murdered them both with an axe he brought with him. He murdered them in order to steal from them. And he stole. He took money and some sort of valuables. He communicated all this, word for word, to Sofia Semyonova, who is the only person who is in on the secret. Though she took part in the murder, neither in word nor deed. On the contrary, she was as horrified as you are now. You needn't worry. She won't give him away.
It isn't possible.
Dunya muttered, her lips pale and rigid. She was gasping.
It isn't possible. He'd not the slightest reason, not the slightest motive. It's a lie. A lie.
It was a robbery. That's what the reason was. He took money and valuables. Oh, to be sure, because of his own qualms of conscience, he didn't avail himself either of the money or the valuables, but hid them under some stone somewhere, and they're still there now. But that was because he didn't dare to avail himself of them.
But is it really likely that he'd go breaking in and stealing? That he could even think of doing such a thing?
Dunya exclaimed, leaping up from her chair.
I mean, you know him. You've seen him. Do you think he could possibly be a thief?
It was as if she were entreating with Svidrigailov. All her fear was forgotten.
In cases like this, Avdotya Romanovna, there are thousands and millions of combinations and categories. A thief goes thieving, but he's well aware that he is a villain. Yet I've heard of one man of a good background who robbed the mail. Who can tell? He may really have thought he was doing something perfectly respectable. It goes without saying that I, like you, would never have believed it if I'd been told about it by someone else. But I believed my own ears. He explained to Sofia Semyonova all his reasons for doing it. At first, she couldn't believe her ears either. But she ended by believing her eyes. Her very own eyes. After all, he told her all about it personally.
What were the reasons?
It's a long story, Avdotya Romanovna. In this case, what's involved is... how can I put it to you? A kind of theory. The sort of argument that says a single villainous act is allowable if the central aim is good. One bad action and 100 good deeds. It is, of course, galling for a young man of merit and inordinate self-esteem to be conscious that, if, for example, he had only somewhere in the region of 3,000 rubles, his whole career, the whole of his future development would take quite a different course. And yet he does not have that 3,000. Add to that the irritation caused by hunger, cramped living quarters, ragged clothing, a vivid awareness of the splendor of his social position, and the situation of his mother and sister. Worse than all that, vanity. Pride and vanity. Though heaven knows, they may coexist alongside his positive tendencies. I mean, I'm not blaming him. Please don't go away with that idea. And anyway, it's not my business. In this case, there was also a little private sub-theory. A reasonable sort of theory, according to which people are divided, don't you know, into raw material and extraordinary individuals. That's to say, the sort of individuals for whom, because of their exalted position, there is no law, but who themselves create the laws for the rest of mankind. The raw material. The sweepings. Well, it's all right. It's a perfectly reasonable theory. Une théorie comme une autre. Napoleon fascinated him dreadfully. Or what really fascinated him was that a great many men of genius have turned a blind eye to isolated acts of wrongdoing in order to stride onwards and across without reflecting. It appears that he too thought he was a man of genius, or at least was convinced of it for a certain period of time. He suffered greatly, and is still suffering from the notion that while he was able to construct a theory, he wasn't able to do the stepping across without reflection, and so consequently is not a man of genius. Well, for a young man with any self-esteem, that's positively degrading. Especially in a time like ours.
What about pangs of conscience? Do you maintain that he lacks all moral feeling? Do you really think that's the kind of person he is?
Oh, Avdotya Romanovna, the waters have grown rather muddy now. Not that they were ever particularly clear. Russians are, on the whole, a roomy-natured lot. As roomy as the land they inhabit. And they have an extremely marked penchant for the fantastic and the chaotic. But it's not much good having all that room if one is not particularly gifted. Do you remember all the things we used to say to each other about that as we sat, just the two of us, alone on a terrace in the garden every evening after supper? I can remember you telling me off just for that kind of roominess. Who knows? Perhaps at the very moment you uttered those words, he was lying here in St. Petersburg, pondering those thoughts of his. After all, Avdotya Romanovna, it's not as if there were really any sacred traditions in our educated social circles these days. What people do is piece something together for themselves, out of books. Or fish something out of the chronicles. But I mean, those are mostly scholars. And you know they are really just a bunch of old duffers. So that the men of society would feel it almost insulting to mimic them. In any case, you know my opinions by and large. I definitely don't blame anyone. I'm just a lily-fingered bystander. And that's the role I adhere to. We've already discussed this together several times, you and I. I even had the good fortune to awaken your interest with my ideas. You're very pale, Avdotya Romanovna.
I know that theory of his. I read his article in that journal. The one about people to whom everything is permitted. Razumikhin brought it to me.
Mr. Razumikhin? He brought you an article by your brother? In a journal? Is there such an article? I didn't know. I say, it must make interesting reading. But where are you off to, Avdotya Romanovna?
I want to see Sofia Semyonovna,
Dunya said faintly.
How do I get through to her room? She may have come back by now. I must see her. It may be better that she...
Avdotya Romanovna was unable to finish her sentence. Her breathing was quite literally cut off.
Sofia Semyonovna won't be back until tonight. Something tells me that is the case. She would have come back very soon, but as she hasn't, it won't be till very late.
Oh, so you're lying! I see you lied to me. You've been lying to me all the time. I don't believe you, don't believe you!
Dunya shouted in a complete frenzy, totally losing her head. Almost in a faint, she collapsed onto the chair Svidrigailov hurried to supply for her.
Avdotya Romanovna, what's wrong with you? Wake up! Have some water. Just one sip.
He sprinkled some water onto her face. Dunya shuddered and woke up.
That had a powerful effect on her.
Svidrigailov muttered to himself, frowning.
Avdotya Romanovna, please put your mind at rest. You mustn't forget that he has friends. We'll save him. We'll get him out of this. Would you like me to take him abroad? I have money. I can have a ticket for him in 3 days. And as for the fact of the murder, he'll accomplish a lot of good works yet. And all this will be wiped from the slate. Please put your mind at rest. He may yet be a great man. I say, what has gotten into you? How do you feel now?
Evil man! He's even mocking at me. Let me go.
Where are you off to? I say, where are you going?
To find him. Where is he? Do you know? Why is this door locked? We came in through this door, but now it's locked. When did you lock it?
I didn't want all the neighbors to hear what I've been talking, or rather, shouting about. I'm not mocking at you at all. It's merely that I'm fed up talking in this language. Where do you plan to go in a state like that? Or do you intend to betray him? You'll just drive him into a rabid fury, and he'll betray himself. I think you ought to realize that he's already being followed. They're on his trail. You'll merely give him away. Please wait. I've just seen him, spoken to him. There's still a chance he can be saved. Please wait. Sit down. Let's consider it together. That's why I asked you to come here, in order to discuss this with you alone, and give it proper consideration. Look, please sit down.
How can you possibly save him? Surely he's beyond saving now.
Dunya sat down. Svidrigailov sat down at her side.
The whole thing now depends on you. On you. On you alone.
He began with glittering in his eyes, almost in a whisper, losing the thread of his thoughts and even failing to articulate certain words in his excitement. Dunya shrank even further away from him in fear. He too was trembling all over.
You. One word from you and he is saved. I will save him. I have money and friends. I'll send him abroad immediately. I'll get him the passport he needs. I'll get 2 passports. One will be his, the other mine. I have friends. I have professional assistants. Would you like that? I'll get you a passport too. And one for your mother. Why should you end up with Razumikhin? I also love you. I love you infinitely. Let me kiss the hem of your dress. Please, let me. I can hardly bear the sound it makes as it rustles. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do it. I will do anything. I will do the impossible. Whatever you believe in, I'll believe in too. I'll do anything. Anything. Don't look at me like that. Do you realize that you're killing me?
He was almost beginning to rave. Something had happened to him, as though the blood had rushed to his head. Dunya leapt up and hurled herself at the door.
Open up! Open up!
She shouted through the door in the hope of attracting someone's attention and shaking it with her hands.
Open up! Is there really no one there?
Svidrigailov stood up and recollected himself. A hostile, derisive smile was slowly finding its way across his still trembling lips.
There's no one in,
he said softly, spacing the words out.
The landlady's gone out, and you're wasting your energy shouting like that. You're just working yourself up in vain.
Where is the key? Open the door this instant, you worthless man!
I have lost it, and I cannot find it.
Oh, so you intend coercion, do you?
Dunya exclaimed, turning pale as death and rushing over to one corner where she shielded herself behind a small table that chanced to be at hand. She did not scream, but fixed her tormentor with her gaze and keenly followed his each and every movement. Svidrigailov did not move from the spot either, and stood at the other end of the room, facing her. He had even managed to regain his self-control, externally at least. His features were, however, still as pale as before. The derisive smile had not left his lips.
You mentioned the word coercion just now, Avdotya Romanovna. If it were to come to that, I think I need hardly tell you that I've taken the necessary precautions. Sofia Semyonovna isn't here. The Kapanaumov's apartment is a very long way away through 5 locked rooms. Lastly, I'm at least twice as strong as you. And what's more, have nothing to fear, as you wouldn't dare complain to anyone afterwards. I mean, you wouldn't really betray your brother, would you? In any case, no one would believe you. Why would a girl go on her own to see a single man in his lodgings? So even if you were to sacrifice your brother, you wouldn't be able to prove anything. Coercion is very difficult to prove, Avdotya Romanovna.
You villain!
Avdotya Romanovna whispered in indignation.
As you wish. But please observe that I was speaking of the matter simply in the form of a hypothesis. In my personal opinion, you are entirely right. Coercion is an abominable thing. I brought it up merely in order to show you that you would have absolutely nothing on your conscience, even if you were to decide to save your brother voluntarily in the manner that I am proposing to you. You will merely be seen to have given way to force of circumstances. Or rather, to force point blank, if we must use that word. Think about it. The fate of your brother and your mother is in your hands. As for myself, I will be your slave. All my life. I shall wait over here.
Svidrigailov sat down on the sofa, about 8 paces away from Dunya. She now had not the slightest doubt as to his steadfast resolution. What was more, she knew the man. Suddenly she took a revolver from her pocket, set it on its catch, and lowered her hand with the revolver in it onto the small table. Svidrigailov leapt up from where he was sitting.
Aha! So that's it!
He exclaimed in surprise, still with his ironic leer.
Well, that completely alters the course of the matter. You're making it extremely easy for me, Avdotya Romanovna. And where did you get that revolver? Not from Mr. Razumikhin, I'll warrant. Pah! Why, that's my own revolver. My old friend. And there I was, looking high and low for it. The shooting lessons I had the honor to give you back on the estate were not wasted then.
It's not your revolver. It belongs to Marfa Petrovna, whom you murdered, villain. None of the things in her house were yours. I took it when I began to suspect what you might be capable of. Dare take one step towards me, and I promise I shall kill you.
Dunya was in a frenzy of excitement. She leveled the revolver.
Well, and what about your brother? I ask from curiosity.
Svidrigailov said, still without moving from the spot.
Report him to the police if you like. Don't move, not one step. I'll shoot. You poisoned your wife. I know that now. You yourself are a murderer.
So you're firmly convinced I poisoned Marfa Petrovna, are you?
Yes, it was you. You hinted at it to me yourself. You spoke to me of poison. I know you made a trip to town in order to get it. You'd been keeping it. It was you. It was most certainly you, you bastard.
Even if it were true, I'd have done it because of you. You'd have been the motive all the same.
That's a lie. I've always hated you. Always.
Ah, Avdotya Romanovna. You've evidently forgotten how in the heat of propaganda you yielded and thrilled. I saw it in your little eyes. Don't you remember that evening, in the moonlight, as the nightingale was singing?
That's a lie.
There was now a glint of fury in Dunya's eyes.
It's a lie, you slanderer.
Is it? Well, perhaps it is. I told a lie. One shouldn't remind women of these little things.
He smiled his ironic smile.
I know you're going to shoot me, my pretty little wild creature. Well then, shoot away!
Dunya brought the revolver up, and, deathly pale, her lower lip ashen and trembling, her large black eyes glittering like fire, looked at him, her revolve now steady, taking aim and waiting for the first movement on his part. Never had he seen her so beautiful. The fire that glittered from her eyes at the moment she had raised the revolver had almost physically scorched him, and his heart now contracted with pain. He took a step forward, and the shot rang out. The bullet slipped through his hair and struck the wall behind him. He paused and gave a quiet laugh.
The wasp has stung me. She aimed straight at my head. What's this? Blood?
He produced a handkerchief in order to wipe away the blood that was flowing in a slender rivulet down his right temple. The bullet must have barely grazed the skin on the top of his head. Dunya lowered the revolver and gazed at Svidrigailov, less in terror than in a kind of wild bewilderment. It was as though she herself did not know what she had done or what was taking place.
Oh well, too bad. You missed. Try again. I'm waiting.
Svidrigailov said quietly, still smiling his ironic smile, though there was a black tinge to it now.
Otherwise I'll get my hands on you before you have time to reload.
Dunya shuddered, quickly reloaded, and again brought the revolver up.
Leave me alone,
she said in despair.
I promise you I'll fire again. I'll kill you.
Oh well, at 3 paces you can't really fail to. But in that case, you won't do it.
His eyes had begun to glitter, and he took another 2 paces forward. Dunya pressed the trigger. The gun misfired.
You didn't load it properly. Never mind. You have 1 cap left. Set the chamber right. I'll wait.
He stood 2 paces in front of her, waiting and looking at her with a gaze of wild determination that was inflamed and passionate, and heavy with pain. Dunya understood that he would sooner die than let her go. And, of course, she would kill him now at 2 paces. Suddenly she flung the revolver aside.
She's given up the idea,
Svidrigailov said in astonishment, and heaved a deep breath. Something seemed to have instantly lifted from his heart, and it was possibly something other than the mere weight of mortal fear, though he could hardly have been aware of it at that moment. This had come as a deliverance from another, blacker, and more wounding emotion which he himself could not have defined in all its force. He approached Dunya and quietly put his arm around her waist. She offered no resistance, but, trembling all over like a leaf, looked at him with imploring eyes. He tried to say something, but his lips merely grimaced, and no words came out.
Let me go,
Dunya said, imploringly, using the thou form. Svidrigailov started. She had spoken that thou somehow differently from the way she had earlier.
So you don't love me?
He asked quietly. Dunya made a negative sign with her head.
And you can't? Not ever?
He whispered with despair.
Never,
Dunya whispered. There ensued a moment of terrible, dumb conflict within Svidrigailov's soul. With an inexpressible gaze, he looked at her. Suddenly, he removed his hand from her waist, turned away, walked quickly over to the window, and stood in front of it. Another moment went by.
Here is the key.
He took it out of the left pocket of his topcoat and placed it behind him on the table without looking at Dunya, and without turning round to look at her.
Take it. Go quickly.
He gazed stubbornly out of the window. Dunya went over to the table to fetch the key.
Quickly! Quickly!
Svidrigailov said, still without moving, and still without turning round. But in that quickly there was, undisguised, an obscure yet terrifying note. Dunya caught it, snatched up the key, rushed to the door, opened it quickly, and tore from the room. Within a moment, like a madwoman, hardly conscious of her actions, she had run down to the canal and was off along it in the direction of Bridge. Svidrigailov continued to stand at the window for about another 3 minutes. At last he slowly turned round, looked about him, and quietly passed the palm of his hand across his brow. A strange smile had distorted his face. A pathetic, sad, enfeebled smile. A smile of despair. The blood, which had dried by now, had left a stain on his palm. He looked at the blood with hatred. Then he wetted a towel and washed his temple. The revolver which Dunya had thrown down and which had slid over to the door suddenly caught his gaze. He picked it up and examined it. It was a small, 3-chambered pocket revolver of an old make. It still contained 2 charges and a cap. It could be fired once more. He pondered for a moment, stuffed the revolver in his pocket, took his hat, and went out. Thank you so very much for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, share, all that jazz, and if you really enjoyed, do subscribe because there is more to come. Only a couple of chapters left now, and my god, we've got a lot of story to resolve. What a chapter. Svidrigailov is disgusting, and I felt bad reading those lines. But I suppose that's the job that I'm doing. If you're listening on podcasts, please leave a review as it helps get this in front of as many people as possible, and reading your reviews really makes my day. If you want to support the show further, you can listen to the show on Spotify while you're sleeping or while you're awake and help me get the monetization requirements that I need there. You can also click on the screen now to the Ko-Fi link, which is about here if you're looking and watching, or it's down in the description box if you're listening. It's a direct way to support the show and helps me in a very, very direct way. Once again, thank you very, very much for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.